Good morning, viewers. Today I am present before you with the topic Impersonality of Poetry, that is, extinction of personality as propounded by T.S. Eliot. Before I begin the podcast, it is advisable that you keep a notebook and a pen so that you can jot down the important points relating to this particular topic. It is further advisable to use earplugs for listening to the podcast. So here I begin. The artist must continually surrender himself to something which is more valuable than himself, that is, the literary tradition. He must allow his poetic sensibility to be shaped and modified by the past. He must continue to acquire the sense of tradition throughout his career. In the beginning, his self, his individuality may assert itself, but as his powers mature, there must be greater and greater extinction of personality. He must acquire greater and greater objectivity. His emotions and passions must be depersonalized. He must be impersonal and objective as a scientist. The personality of the artist is not important. The important thing is his sense of tradition. A good poem is a living whole of all the poetry that has ever been written. He must forget his personal joys and sorrows and be absorbed in acquiring a sense of tradition and expressing it in his poetry. Thus, the poet's personality is merely a medium having the same significance as a catalytic agent or a receptacle in which chemical reactions take place. That is why Eliot holds that, I quote, honest criticism and sensitive appreciation is directed not upon the poet but upon the poetry, unquote. By opposing the romantic theory of poetry as self-expression, Eliot gave a new direction to literary criticism. Poetry, in his view, is not merely the expression of personality, and the poetic process does not involve mere self-expression. The poetic process is a process of depersonalization. I quote, a continual surrender of himself as he, the poet, is at the moment to something which is more valuable. The progress of an artist is continual self-sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. Further, poetry is not a turning loose of emotion, but an escape from emotion. It is not the expression of personality, but an escape from personality. Unquote. By these statements, however, Eliot does not deny personality to a poet. I quote again, only those who have personality and emotions know what it means to escape from these things. Unquote. He insists upon the point that the poetic process is the continual extinction of personality, a surrender of personal emotion to the emotion of art. Eliot elaborates his impersonal theory of poetry by bringing into focus two important points. First, as all poetry, whether written in the past or being written in the present, is a living whole, no poem is to be or can be viewed in isolation as an unrelated identity. Each poem is modified by the poems ever written and in turn modifies them all. The relation in which a poem stands to other poems by other poets is therefore the proper object upon which criticism and appreciation is to be directed. Second, another field to be explored by the critical activity is the relation of a poem to the poet himself. To illustrate this point, Eliot gives a suggestive analogy from science, the analogy of a catalyst. The mind of the poet also acts as a catalyst. It operates either partly or exclusively upon the experiences of the poet himself. But the experiences or passions are only the material of poetry. The poetic mind transmutes them into new artistic wholes, thus surrendering personal emotion to the emotion of art. We have to realize clearly the distinction between the man who suffers and the mind that creates. The more a poet succeeds in achieving perfection in his art, the more completely separate in him is the man who suffers and the mind that creates. What distinguishes the mind of a mature poet from others is that it acts as a refined medium which forms new combinations out of variegated, diverse experiences. The test of the maturity of an artist is the completeness with which his mind digests and transmutes the passions which form the substance of his poetry. The man suffers, that is, has experiences, but it is his mind which transforms his experiences into something new and different. The personality of the poet does not find expression in his poetry. It acts like a catalytic agent in the process of poetic composition. The experiences which enter the poetic process, says Eliot, may be of two kinds. They are emotions and feelings. Poetry may be composed out of emotions only, or out of feelings only, or out of both. T.S. Eliot here distinguishes between emotions and feelings, but he does not state exactly what the difference is. So, this was a short note on how the impersonality of poetry, that is, the extinction of personality, is suggested to us by T.S. Eliot. I hope this podcast proved to be of help to each one of you. Please do leave your questions in the comment section below. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click on the bell icon for latest update. Thank you for your valuable time. Here's wishing you a great day.